Retraction.
Are we said, everybody said, okay. Let's go ahead and get started. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Town Council of the Town of Clarkdale for Tuesday, May 9th, 2023 at 6 p.m. in the Clark Memorial Clubhouse. Welcome all of you. Roll call. Vice Mayor Hunsetter. Here. Councilmember O'Neill. Here. Councilmember Babbitt Pierce.
Present.
Councilmember Jones.
Here.
And please note that Mayor Prudhomme Bauer is here. We have a quorum. As I get started this evening, I wanted to read the mission and vision statements for the town of Clarkdale. The town of Clarkdale connects our unique history, proximity to the Verde River, and small town charm to a future with a vibrant economy. We cultivate an environment where residents and businesses can thrive, providing services and jobs for our residents and capitalizing upon tourism. We sustainably enhance our infrastructure, support the arts and education, and develop recreational opportunities to create a bright future for our entire community. Our mission: the town of Clarkdale serves the community by providing amenities, infrastructure, services, and public safety to enhance quality of life. We are stewards of our history while we sustainably and resiliently plan for the future with an emphasis on community engagement and transparency. So with the first item on agenda tonight, of course, is public comment. This is time for members of the public may give comment on an item of general nature. No official action may be taken by the council during this time unless it is to direct staff to look into a matter. If you want to speak on an item that is on the agenda, we will have it at that time. This is for public comment only. You are limited to 5 minutes at the microphone. Is there anybody who wishes to speak at public comment? Nobody online there? Seeing no one coming up to the podium, let's move on to the next items on the agenda. They are current events and organizational reports. I believe the reports from mayor, vice mayor, council members have been submitted online for review for us all to see. Let's move on to organizational reports. Cottonwood Area Transit.
No meeting, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Verde Valley Transportation Planning Organization.
The meeting is later this month.
Okay. Northern Arizona Council of Governments.
We had a meeting and I have dispersed the information.
Okay. NAMWA, Northern Arizona Municipal Water Users Association.
We did have a meeting and we discussed our water utilities leadership forum, which is next Friday, the 19th. You can register online and it is free in
Perfect.
Flagstaff.
In Flagstaff,
Yeah.
okay, thank you. Transportation Policy Advisory Council,
We meet tomorrow.
okay. Verde Front Leadership Council met on April 23rd, yes. On April 23rd, it was a Zoom meeting. The notes from that meeting were submitted today to town clerk to disperse to all of us. Greater Arizona Mayors Mayors Association has not met. Sustaining flows.
No meeting.
Okay, and Yavapai Communities for Young Children.
We meet on Thursday.
You meet on Thursday. Great, thank you. Item C is finance reports. I believe those were submitted as part of the council packet, and I believe we also were given today at our podium, at our seats of a current report. Is that
Right.
correct?
At the time of posting, we had not received the information from March local sales tax. So we have subsequently gotten that, and that's what's reflected on this chart.
Okay, thank you. And this will be posted with the everything else. Okay. If you take a chance, everybody in the audience, take a chance and look at this. It's pretty straightforward. We're doing well financially as a town, so it's always good to look at those. Thank you so much for updated information. Let's move on to item 5, which is the consent agenda. We have 4 items on consent this evening. We have the approval of the minutes. We have a community-oriented policing services hiring program grant that we're applying for. The Mountain Gate Well, and the 4th items,
EPS easement.
APS easement for the Clark Memorial Clubhouse. Does any of the council members wish to pull any items for discussion? Okay. Seeing no one want any item coming out for discussion, I will take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve consent agenda items A through D as written.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved by Vice Mayor Hunsetter and seconded by Councilmember Babbitt Pierce to approve consent agenda items A through D as presented in our packet. All those in favor, any questions to that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion carried. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to new business. If everybody in the audience, I assume many of you are here for item C on the agenda. We're going to let us take item A and B through. They shouldn't take that long and we'll get to item C quickly. Okay? Thank you. First item C, item 6A, Caballero Park Improvement Project Contract Award. I believe we have Joni Westcott, Park and Recreation Manager, to present this subject.
Yes. Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. As you know, you had given us some direction a while back to reject the bids that we had. They came in high. We had some issues with them, and we went back out to bid, made a few changes on the scope of work. To help reduce the bid amount slightly. We learned that the grading situation was not, the drainage situation at Caballero Park. I'm sorry, I'm here about Caballero.
You're fine.
You guys know, but you guys don't know. Sorry about that. Anyway, we have received the bids. We have elected to award a bid on your, along with your approval, and you have a contract before you. And what happened was we ended up in a much better place, and we were really happy about that. The low bid came in at $315,767.21. And that was about $140,000 less than the last low bid that we received in the first round of bids. So we are hopeful that you will award the contract, approve the contractor's contract with Arizona Recreation Design Incorporated was the company, and we do expect however, a few change orders to come along the way. So we're requesting that you approve the contract and authorize the town manager to be able to approve those up to the budget amount for the project.
Just for the audience who is here, since we have some new people here, can you give just a very brief description of what we're doing and where the funding has come from?
Yes,
Thank you.
I apologize.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, I was trying to hurry for y'all because I know you want to come up and talk. So this project is the Caballero Park Improvement Project. The park is in Lower Clarkdale in Patio Park, and it is a very small park. We received a $356,000 grant for the project through the Clark community development block grant. And community development block grant. So we have money to build the park, and we went out to bid the first time, and the bids came in very high and much above our budget. And so we asked the council to consider rejecting those, and we took it back and came in a much better place, as I've said. So we're really excited about the project for the community. We're putting in playground equipment, we're putting in a ramada and a picnic area, and it's really going to improve that park area.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that. With that, are there any questions for Joni about the request here? Yes.
I have more of a comment. First off, way to stick with it. Really good job. But I wanted to make it clear to the public that there is already a park there that the town is responsible for, and it's a dirt lot. And the lots down there, the yards are very small, so we're all very excited about this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Comment
Yeah.
too. I researched the company that got the low bid just to see what kind of work they did, and they have a very nice website with lots of pictures of other parks that they've done in other municipalities. I'm very impressed. I'm excited that they're going to come in and turn this into another jewel in Cartdale.
Yeah, we're very, very excited to work with them. We've also done our homework and done background checks just to check in with other communities on their work. And we were very impressed with, they actually came to the pre-bid meeting along with a lot of other contractors, but their questions were very thoughtful and very thorough as to things that needed to be thought about that we had missed. And so we were able to go back and change our scope and send it out to everyone for a fair bid. But yeah, we're really excited to work.
Thank you for your perseverance. I think this is a win.
Anything else on this side?
Nothing that hasn't already been stated. Thank you.
Ditto.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. This is, we've been all excited about this, and having to go back and rebid was the right thing because it came out even better. So we appreciate it very, very much. And now we can go forward. Yes.
And I wanted to add that we hand delivered flyers with the Parks and Rec Commission will be meeting tomorrow to look at a couple of different park options. So if anybody is from that community or interested, we have a Parks and Rec Commission meeting here tomorrow night at 5 o'clock. And they will be looking at the park playground plans, but we hand delivered flyers to every home in Patio Park to let them know that we were doing that so that they could attend and be a part of that conversation. So we also had done a community outreach with them to get their feedback on what they wanted. And so now we're inviting them back.
Very good.
Fabulous.
Thank you.
Fabulous. Seeing no more questions or comments, I'll take a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the contractor contract with Arizona Recreation Design Incorporated for Caballero Park Improvements Project and allow the town manager to sign off on all change orders needed not to exceed the approved budget for the project.
Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Babbitt Pierce and seconded by Councilmember Jones to approve the contract with Arizona Recreation Design Incorporated for Caballero Park Improvements Project and allow the town manager to sign off on all change orders needed not to exceed the approved budget for the project. Okay, we all understand it. No more question. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joni. Let's move on to item 6B, Broadway Street Improvements Phase 2. Assistant Town Manager Ruth Mayday is going to speak to this. Welcome, Ruth.
Well, this isn't nearly as exciting as a park. Before you have the supplemental contract with our Durant, the engineering firm that the town uses for our design and town engineer services for design of the second phase of the Broadway improvements. This is phase two. Phase one are largely complete. There are some cleanup items we have that will be included in this, but this will design the remaining approximately 1 mile of improvements along that road. So resurface, curb gutter, some drainage improvements and those sorts of things. So this is design only. Construction will be with the Perfect Exchange funds. And that's not likely to take place until next spring.
Next spring. Okay, thank you.
I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Are there any questions by all of you?
I guess, just for clarification, the design work is gonna start immediately though? And the
Yes.
construction would be in the spring. Got
Yep,
it.
design starts
Okay.
now and then construction will start. this
Thank you.
spring.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Anything else? If not, I'll take a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the contract and expenditure and authorize the town manager to execute the needed agreements with Ardura for the design of the Broadway Street improvements, phase 2.
Okay, is there a second to that?
I'll second.
It's been moved by Vice Mayor Hunsetter and seconded by Councilmember O'Neill to approve the contract with Ardura Engineering. And expenditures and authorize the town as outlined in the contract for phase 2 design of the Broadway street improvements and authorize the town manager to execute the needed agreements. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion carried. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. Thank you so much. Excuse me, Anita. Okay, let's move on to item 6C, the historic bandstand demolition replication proposal. Again, we have Assistant Town Manager Ruth Mayday, who will speak on this subject, and following that, then I will open it up to public comment. I'll ask that we open up to public comment. Ruth, welcome.
Thank you. Oh, okay. I don't know if I was supposed to do it if you were.
There you go.
Okay, before you, this evening, we have the discussion of the contract with Woodruff to reconstruct the gazebo. I wanted to take some time because I understand this has been a hot topic on Facebook to walk through exactly what the process has been, the time that we've spent on this, the steps that staff is taking, the reviews that this is seen in Historic Preservation Commission and at Town Council. So everyone's clear about exactly what's being proposed here. So this is a timeline of the actions that we've taken. In October of 21, we started this conversation. Late Public Works Director Maher Hazing came to the Historic Preservation Commission and talked about demolition, rehabilitation, or reconstruction of the gazebo. At that time, we took comments from the public, and the Historic Preservation's Commission's direction to staff was to retain an historic architect and a structural engineer to examine the structure and make sure that it is, to determine how bad the damage was and was it repairable or not. So staff went out and contracted with Bill Otwell from Prescott. Bill was highly recommended by the State Historic Preservation Office and actually was in charge of the rehabilitation of the bandstand in Prescott. So he does have specific experience for this. We also use Frost Structural Engineers out of Prescott. We received a report from them in late March. In between that, we gave a presentation, staff presented to Town Council exactly what condition the bandstand was in and why these repairs were necessary. On April 5th of 22, the report was accepted by the Historic Preservation Commission reports. In November of 22, we put out a request for proposals for contractors to bid on the rehabilitation of the structure, which means to just fix what's wrong with it. On December 29th, we had a bid opening. We had one bid, the original one bidder. That bid was $216,775,000. We went back out to the site, worked with the contractor and had them revise the bid. They got down to $192,000, which town council considered at the February 14th meeting and decided to reject that bid. Directed staff to go out and find some alternatives to look into what it would cost to reconstruct the structure. So in March, we met with Gordian, which is a procurement company that we use to help us with the procurement process, because there are so many regulations regarding what we can and can't do when we put projects out to bid for public works projects. We use them, all of their contractors are pre-qualified to the state, so we can go directly to contract. We met with Gordian and Woodruff, which was the a contractor on site. We received bids from Woodruff for $149,826 to completely rebuild the structure, and then $59,023 to add an ADA access ramp. And here we are tonight, 5/29, to review the reconstruction bid at council. So this is the earliest photo we can find of the bandstand. I believe this was taken in about 1919. And as you can see, the structure has changed a bit since then. You can see there's kind of a dirt ramp that leads up to the floor. There weren't stairs back then. And it's my understanding that the structure was moved within the park at some point. So in 2004, the gazebo underwent a pretty rigorous rehabilitation. This is the north elevation, and these are the specs. They pulled off all of the shakes and the asphalt shingles underneath, put in new decking and new shake shingles, took out all the electrical, rebuilt the stairs, and did some concrete work for the foundation. It was sitting on blocks of wood and railroad ties. This is a south elevation. Again, they retained the finial on top. We took the metal drip edge off, painted the existing posts, reblocked some of the railing. And again, it references the turn down for the concrete footers. This is the east elevation. And again, we're to rebuild the railing with the cross lap joints, a new wooden handrail, new 4x4 wood post at the tread for the base of the handrail, remove and rebuild the access door so that it was more usable for access underneath the gazebo or bandstand. Again, removing the asphalt shingles as discussed here, taking off the sheathing on the roof that was no good and replacing that, and then replacing the existing railing as needed. These are the details for the wall and the roof. I'm not going to bore you with all these details. They're very specific on the size of bolts and all of that kind of stuff. And if anybody wants to see this, they can certainly come into the office. I'll be happy to share it with them. So if we go through and look at, these are all photos from 2004, you can see here that there's damage to the rafter tails, the ends of the rafters where they abut the fascia board. So that's the board that comes down. The rafters come in like this. These were not replaced. This is some of the termite damage. This is what the ultimate strip down of the structure looked like. So everything was pretty much taken off. The lap siding was masonite rather than cedar. The stairs are completely gone. The floor was replaced. So they did quite a bit of work on it at that time. The total project cost was $30,788.26. Town staff rebuilt most of the structure. So that's how we were able to keep the cost down. And all that's left of the original structure at the end of this were the posts, the roof structure, and the floor substructure. In 2011, there was another rehab done. This one was mostly just you can see the wear and tear on the stairs. So the parts on this that form the octagon are called rim joists. They were sagging, so this was one of the repairs that was done, and they're just sitting on a 2x4. There's no strong. There are things called Simpson strong ties. And there are little metal things that slide over the top of the post and then hold that are a bracket that will hold the joist, in this case, in place. Those should be used there so things don't shift around. These are some rotting post base from 2011. This is the deck patched with street signs. That project cost was just under $10,000. So that replaced the deck and the stair treads, shored up that one corner and reinforced some of the floor joists as necessary. So now the current condition. So this is looking underneath. You can see, it's hard to see in this photo, but there is a turnbuckle that runs right in between those two floor joists and some cabling, and that's to keep the gazebo from twisting. So when we met with the structural engineer and with the architect, when we talked to them afterwards, the architect and the structural said that what the building is doing is essentially it's twisting and trying to screw itself into the ground. So that's why we have that turnbuckle under there, is to keep it, to try and help keep it from continuing to twist. You can see under these, so you have these posts that are holding up those floor joists. There are no strong ties on those. Again, there's no brackets or spacers or anything that's tying the floor joists to the supports underneath. And that also helps control the shifting of the structure. None of that is there. You can kind of see the turnbuckle a little bit better. So this is another look underneath. So the joist hangers, you can see the metal thing there, are on the exterior wall only. There's, again, nothing tying it to that substructure underneath. They're not properly affixed. You can see the nails halfway driven in. The joists are all cracked. Joists are cracked and splitting. It looks like the floorboards were turned over and reused. There's just a lot of age. It's showing its age. So we have some inconsistent framing underneath that is shifting load from a load-bearing wall, which is specifically engineered to carry weight, to non-load-bearing walls that are not designed to carry any weight. And then we also have the, you can see that a lot of these are just toenail together. So that's when you nail in at an angle, and it is, it's not well done. And again, these should be all with brackets so these structures don't shift and twist. So moving to the stairs, we have posts out there in direct contact with the earth that just wicks moisture up from the soil and causes them to rot from the inside out. We have holes in the risers and the treads. The treads are all cracked and sagging. The door frame is falling apart on the access panel. We have lots of the boards that are split and cracking on the lap siding. We have loose hinges on the access panel. We can't use bigger screws. They won't fit in the holes. And even if we could get them in there, they'd just crack the boards. These are the posts. You remember what we looked at before. These are more, this is more of the decay in the posts. You can see that one of them has been cut away and a chunk of 6x6 has been shoved in there to try to support it. If you stand there and look at the posts, they're actually out of square and out of alignment. So they're doing this and then doing this.
That's twisting.
And again, we're seeing more degradation of the fascia boards and the rafters. Again, the rafters were not replaced in any of the previous rehabs. So now to the actual cost. So the cost, like I said before, was for rehabilitation is $192,000. And essentially what we would be saving is the roof structure. That structure is not, again, properly braced. It's just nailed together. There are no brackets or anything tying it together. Adding the ADA access ramp, which because we're replacing more than 50% of the structure we are required to do, it brings a total to $251,925.02. To reproduce the structure, which is the bid that we have from Woodruff, is $149,826.31. With the ADA access, it's $208,849.33. So staff has brought both of these sets of numbers back so we can, spend a little bit of time talking about what's at stake here.
The 251,925.02, what is that?
So those numbers, excuse me, include the ADA access.
Thank you.
Ruth, can you just clarify, the 192,902 was the value engineered bid?
That's the value engineered,
So
yes.
what did you lose when you went to that? And also what is different between the two bids? I think it's electrical, but can you expand upon that?
Right, so there is, for the reproduction bid, we would be doing some new electrical work that was not included in the rehab. We also have, for the rehabilitation, instead of using cedar, which is insect resistant and rot resistant, we would be using one course of cedar boards on the floor or at the ground level, and then the rest of it would be substituted with pine. So that's probably one of the biggest differences in that. There were some labor costs that were different, and there were also some costs associated with some of the structural work that needs to be done and the concrete work. So really what we're looking at here are some pretty healthy price tags. And this is not an easy decision. This is balancing historic preservation, which everybody loves, versus fiscal responsibility. And what is in the best interest of the community as a whole? Do we spend $251,000 to rehab the structure, or do we spend $208,000 to completely rebuild it, to replicate what is there, and then add ADA access to it? And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. So in your report, you mentioned that it would be removed from the historic registry if we went with the rehab. Based on all of the other changes that have already been made, is it possible that it should have previously been removed? And what does that mean if it's removed?
So we're to that point now where I think we would have to, even if we did the rehab, I don't think there's enough of the original structure left for it to remain on the National Register. So this structure is what they call a contributing structure to the historic district. So when the historic district for Clarkdale was created, people went through and they listed all of these buildings and they decided, are these contributing? Do they add to the historic nature of the town? Or are they non-contributing? Have they been altered so much that they no longer have any historic contribution whatsoever? So this is a contributing structure. Unlike this building was included in the historic district and is independently listed. So it's both ways. This is simply a contributing structure, although a very popular one, to the historic district. So removing it is, I know it sounds callous, but removing it really is not that, really it happens. It happens a lot because especially with buildings and structures like this, they're exposed to the elements. There's only so much that these materials can withstand. And you get to a point where you have to ask, do we continue to save these boards and nails, or do we redo the structure so we have the entire gazebo that's safe for the community to use?
Any other questions from council before we go to public comment?
Can you tell me what, I'm sure you've done research, what is the average lifespan of an outdoor wood facility that's exposed to the elements?
Probably 15 to 20 years, maybe.
Okay.
They don't last that long. And especially in extremes like this, you have sun, you have heat, you have water, you have expansion, you have contraction. So there's a lot of things that happen that really affect these structures.
So that applies to decks and pergolas and
Right.
all these outdoor wood structures that are exposed to bugs and, okay.
Lisa,
So would you please clarify for me that I thought I heard you say that rehabilitation did not include any electrical
We'd have to,
but the reconstruction would include electrical.
we would have to add electrical to that rehab or to the
So
rehab.
at what kind of cost, do you know?
Off the top of my head, I really don't, but it's 15 to 20 easily, just for
Okay.
materials
All right,
and labor.
Thanks. Thank you. Any other questions? Laura?
Those pictures showed us very clearly the rot and stuff and what kind of things in either proposal would be done to help alleviate that kind of thing from like ground connect and, you know, materials on the ground and that kind of stuff.
So they make new brackets now that provide a gap between so in this instance, it would be between the bottom of those posts and the concrete slab that they're sitting on now. That gap will prevent the moisture from wicking up and rotting the posts from the inside. And there's a neat little cap that slides down over the top of them, so you don't see the actual bracket.
I have one more comment.
Okay,
I thought it was interesting seeing those really historic pictures and seeing that it was red at one time.
Yes.
any other comments, questions for? Why don't we, with permission of all of you, open it up to public comment? And what I'll do is I have a list of people who want to comment. Then we have a couple of people online who will comment. And if you haven't put one in, I will still ask if you want to come up and make public comment after that. So, okay, with that, the first person, please state your name and where you're a resident of. So the first person is Drake Meinke. Drake.
My name is Drake Menke. I'm a Clarkdale resident. Good evening, town council, mayor, town manager. I would like to recommend restoration. I don't see much wrong with this structure, actually. When I looked at the outfall report, it says the structure is savable. It's in the top line right there up front. In the bluff statement, you get it there, which is bottom line up front, says it's restorable. When it comes to National Historic Register properties, we don't replace them, we restore them. You can read that in the National Register guidelines as well, and so forth. Let's see. The estimates on this project have seemed to have snowballed out of proportion somehow. I don't know how, but it seems like too many people got involved in these estimates when they shouldn't have been. Okay, just hundreds of thousands of dollars for a project that most people chuckle at when you tell them that it's going to cost that much. When you ask the contractor, they just start chuckling away, and it's like, why? And it's usually because too many people got involved and so forth. This is our landmark in our town. We forgot to mention that it's the #2 listed landmark on the National Register in the town of Clarkdale. So the #1 listed landmark in the town of Clarkdale is this building. Okay, so it carries a lot of weight, and a lot of people did a lot of work to get that property listed, years worth of work to get it onto the National Register, right, decades ago. That's the heart and soul of our community. And I think if we recreate it, it would no longer be the heart and soul of our community because it would be fake. We know that. The National Register of Properties say, don't recreate things when they aren't burned down. Recreate when things are no longer there. You restore when things are there. Okay. That's not my guidelines. I didn't make them up. We should also ask, what if the town didn't own that property? What if Freeport-McMoRan owned that property? What would we tell them to do if it came up to restoration or recreation? I don't think any of the town's folks would ever say to recreate it. I think we would all ask Freeport-McMoRan to restore it back to its original glory and so forth. One other thing is, I would ask why we have not sought out other private grants to do this project? Why have we not sought out corporate funding? Why have we not asked private people in the town of Clarkdale to help with funding of this project? And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason Bernard.
I'm Jason Benatz, Clarkdale. Thank you, council, for having me, town manager. Charity Brooks, town clerk. I was here last time 18 years ago, doing the same thing. I was told to do my homework. I've done my homework. I watched the pavilion burn at Peck's Lake. I watched the mansion burn. I watched the pool go away. I spent my summers here. How long has my family been here? Since 1917. George, my cousin George, cousin, his dad helped rebuild it. The gazebo by hand. I'm worried, and everyone was like, why did you put that on Facebook? It was too much. No, it wasn't. I'm sorry, Vice Mayor, but you referred to it as, what was it? A glorified lawn ornament. It's on YouTube.
Say that.
It's on YouTube.
I believe that is not something we need to bring up
Oh,
and go to a council.
no,
member.
I
Just give
think
us
you
the
do,
facts.
because it tells me what she feels about that.
Say that.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. In the last meeting on Valentine's Day, you said that. Out loud, in here.
We don't do YouTube, we do Zoom, so I don't know where you saw it. and
It's out there on the internet. I'm sorry.
Well,
That tells me a lot.
Jason, let's just please get on with the points.
I
that
know
we
it's
can bring
uncomfortable, but
forward.
it tells me a lot about at least someone's feeling about the structure that you think can be thrown away. Yeah, rebuilding it, I get it. I don't want to see those costs incurred by anyone. It's a lot of money. My family donated a lot last time. What are we gonna do if we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on this gazebo and we don't maintain it again? Who's responsible for maintaining that structure? Okay. I think there are other options to be explored with all of this. Much cheaper, inexpensive options. It seemed structurally sound to me. I'm not an engineer. But I don't know what we're going after. The ramp for $59,000. Yes, it's exempt from ADA because of its age, but I'm sure there's a lift that we can put next to the bandstand that's electric that people could wheel their wheelchair into, get lifted up to the level and pushed onto the bandstand. No, it's not historically correct, but neither is $59,000 for a spiral that goes around a recreation of something. I want you to think hard about how important that structure is. If you go on the internet and you look up pictures of Clarkdale, which image or what structure do you find the most photos of? The gazebo, the bandstand. Replace it, okay, 200 grand. I think there are options we can look at as far as replacing what needs to be replaced on that, and then properly maintain it over time. So 20 years from now, I don't have to come in here and get worked up and post on Facebook about how passionate I am about keeping this as the focal point to this amazing town. Thank you.
I want everybody, when you comment, please not go against anyone who is sitting up here and try to define what we feel or we think, okay? We want your opinion about the structure. I want to keep it to the structure, please. And remember, you get no more than 5 minutes to speak. Next person, Michael Linder.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just a couple of things. First of all, I want to correct some of the misstatements that are out there in various places, including the county records and so forth. So the bandstand was not completely replaced 50 years ago, 60 years ago, 70 years ago. It did go through some extensive renovations in 2004, as we saw. The earliest photo that we have is actually a 1917 photo of what we now refer to as the park. The United Verde Copper Company referred to it as the plaza. And this shows the bandstand as we know it today, except for is on the front portion of the parcel. The parcel hadn't been fully developed. The gravel pathways had not been installed. The fences have not been installed. And the bandstand is actually facing what we now know as the brewery instead of Main Street. We have every reason to believe that the bandstand that's there today is the same one. It was built on railroad ties, and they probably simply dragged it to its new position when they completed the park. Today, the alley is gone, and I'm sure some people kind of wish it was still there, knowing the problems that we've got today with what's underneath. But the only difference in this photo here that we have from 1917 versus today is that the siding around the bottom is not 8 feet, it's kind of split. And there's a little piece of trim in between each one, but the copper ball on the top, everything looks exactly the same. It just appears that it was moved and reoriented. For a time frame in terms of when we think that all this was done, probably 1919, because the fencing that goes around there, the pilasters and so forth, match the eclectic homes that were built in 1919 on First South and Sunset. So that should kind of establish the nature, or the historic nature of the park. The second thing is that the town did not take ownership of the park until the mid-70s. It was owned by the Copper Company and the various owners that came afterwards. It was still owned by Clarkdale Realty all the way up through the 60s and early 70s. Clarkdale Realty let the town use it. The town had to provide liability waivers. The Clarkdale Realty paid for the water. Town mowed it with manual lawnmowers at the time. So we are dealing with a historic structure that was worked on in 2004. Now, will that historic structure be disqualified based on the work that was done? I disagree with the statement earlier, because at our meeting in October 2021, when Maher presented the proposal to dismantle and rebuild the structure, Eric Bondi from SHPA was here. He saw the photos. We specifically talked about rebuilding and moving and all those types of things and when it would be appropriate. And that all can be found in our meeting minutes from that meeting. Our recommendation at that time, through the advice of one of our historic consultants, was to get a historic architect, which the town did. They consulted the engineer, as Ruth stated. There's a report out there that does not agree with all the things that we saw up on the slides. They did have a different statement of work. And the biggest thing is that we ultimately got to the bid for reconstruction. And or not reconstruction, but for rehabilitation. Now, at the last meeting where this was discussed, I guess it said it was February 14th. Ellen Taylor and myself got up, and Ellen's statements were that when the bid comes in this high, there are most likely two issues. One, that our specifications had some issues. Two, that we had contractor collusion, that they didn't want any part of it, and they just gave us a high price. And there was an option 5 on the table that Ellen had endorsed, and I agreed with her. And that option was to go get 2 bids. One to replace, like we have, but a new bid to repair. And I'm not really sure why that second bid to repair didn't come in, because obviously the first bid shows that the bid that we got to replace certainly shows that that very first bid that we got to repair has some issues. You know, you're talking a complete bill of material to rebuild the structure along with all that labor. So I think what needs to be done is to go get the other bids. So we have apples to apples comparison. What we're seeing up here is not apples to apples. One other point that the
30 seconds.
historic architect told us was that we should use a lift and not a ramp. Or Terry Gibson, our HPC chair, requested that the bids come back to the Historic Preservation Commission before they came back to council, so we could iron all this stuff out before we had a meeting like this. That didn't happen. I'm very disappointed that it didn't. So I request that the council please table this, go get the other bids, so we can look at apples to apples.
5
The
minutes,
Historic
wrap it up.
Preservation Commission, take a look at it and revisit it.
5 minutes.
And I have plenty more. I'll be glad to talk to you after this, and I'll be glad to talk to the journal.
Thank you. Thank you. George Bernard. Welcome.
Thank you. Council, staff, managers, George Spinats, 117 Main Street. It's obviously a passionate issue. In listening to the presentation, I'm currently trying to rehab some garages at my home, and they were built with old growth cedar that I can't drive a nail in and can barely drive a screw because they're like concrete. To hear that you're going to put cedar down on the base and then build with pine, we're going to be back here. If you were going to rebuild it and all new, it should all be cedar, in my opinion. And I'm not a contractor, but pine isn't going to last. There's, in my mind, there's certainly an option. And the other thing, all that lumber is not nominal. If it's a 6 by 6, it's 6 inches by 6 inches. If it's 4 by 4, it's 4 inches by 4. So if whether we're going to rebuild it or whether we're going to build new, we should go out to bid with a lumber mill that can make the lumber necessary out of cedar that's full size and is not nominal. I didn't see, and I recall the previous talk about a circular ramp. I didn't see that in the presentation today. It would seem to me that a lift would be more aesthetically pleasing and easier for someone who is disabled to maneuver rather than trying to go around the circle to get up to the top. And certainly, because it's a passionate issue, I think there are people willing to roll up their sleeves and help solve this problem. It goes back a long time with my family. I can remember Matt Peckrich and my dad, and I don't know who else, being the first ones to decorate it for Christmas. At some point, my dad ended up doing it solely, which he loved to do. I've got a big plastic bin full of Christmas lights from the last time the family decorated it for Christmas. So you can understand that it's a passionate issue. In terms of preventing the termite damage and the water damage. Constant maintenance is required. The metal lifts that'll lift the post up off the ground are certainly a solution, but you still have to look for the mud tunnels for the termites trying to get up past it and to get to the lumber. So I would hope that we would revisit it and see if we can, as a community, come to common ground and solve the problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Ellen Taylor.
Hello, my name is Ellen Taylor and I live on Main Street. I'm a general contractor and a developer, and the bandstand is in bad shape. If we restore it, I recommend doing it correctly. And I agree with, I didn't catch your name, George, but using pine is not the way to go out here, guys. Usually what we do is we put something that's impervious to weather down on the first row. And when you build a house, it's green board, it's termite proof. You build this, Simpson ties is what you're talking about. Mechanical connections were not even accepted until the 70s. It's recent. So everything was toe-nailed in, and everything twists and everything grinds itself. So what we have is an older structure that needs to be reconstructed if we do it properly, and probably will cost about $300,000, especially since Santa Barbara's got one just like it. And I'm stealing your thunder, but that's what it's costing them to do it right. So I don't know, that's an issue and that's out of my hands, because I look at it now and I see a lot of damage. I don't know even how they would restore that kind of termite ridden twisting. It's not, in my mind, it's not restorable. But if you've got a way to do it and you're happy with it, and God bless you, go for it. But that said, I want to say two words: Colonial Williamsburg. Colonial Williamsburg is in Virginia. It's the largest living historical museum. It has, according to their website, 500 to 700, several websites, structures in it. Of all those structures, only 88 are restored on their original foundations. The rest of them are recreated. So we have a schism here, an ideology that we want something restored. Do we want to use the same hardware? We can't. It's not up to code. It isn't going to work. We're going to be back here in a few years. Do we want to use the same lumber? We can't. It's eaten by termites. Do we want to use, what do we want to use from that to restore it? Not a whole lot. So you can kind of, I'm being blunt and I don't want to yuck your yum, but I love that saying. But it's you can't restore it and you're going to rebuild most of it. It's just the way it is, unless I'm missing something, and I'm willing to be educated. But in Colonial Williamsburg, I mean, they put plaques next to these things with pictures and they show you what it looked like. And it's the most visited living history museum in the United States. So here we are, I love that bandstand. I see it twice a day. I walk dogs by it. I think it's terrific. It's really in bad shape. And if you want to educate me specifically on how you expect to restore it, I'm open for it, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think you're kidding yourselves. The wood needs to be replaced. The mechanical connections need to be updated. And then is it a restoration or is it a recreation? It's a gray area in my mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Bonnie Lane.
Good evening, I'm Bonnie Lane. I would like to take a few minutes to say thank you to our town council. You are the ones who take the responsibility to step up and to serve. You've made the choice to run for office because you feel like you can make a difference. You give of yourselves, you give of your time and your energy and your expertise. If you don't have the necessary expertise coming into the role, then you educate yourselves and you gain the knowledge that you need so that you can provide the appropriate guidance for our little town. As citizens of historic Clarkdale, I don't know a single person who isn't here by choice. Some of us, like most of you, have chosen to make Clarkdale your home for decades. Some of us, like myself, have come to that decision more recently to reside here in Clarkdale. I believe that every person in this room can agree that we are here because we feel this is a special little town, a true gem here in Central Arizona. Sometimes the decisions that you need to make as our chosen council members are not simple. You need to attend to the needs and the desires of this charming, historic little town, while keeping in mind fiscal responsibility and how to best preserve the atmosphere and the charm that make Clarkdale so special. The physical attributes of our town are distinct. Our history is a big part of who and what we are. Our people are also a big part of who and what we are. I am truly grateful that each of you have taken the responsibility to step up and to serve for all of us. You are the ones who've taken on the sometimes challenging choices that must be made in order to maintain what makes Clarkdale such a special place to live. Our history is our history. It will always be there. It's not going away. We have a fabulous historical society that is not going to let Clarkdale's history be forgotten. I trust our town council that we have elected to make the right choices as we move forward that are going to help us preserve the atmosphere and the charm that make Clarkdale the gem of Arizona. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe we have a couple of people who wish to speak who are on Zoom. I think the first is Toby Payne. Toby?
Do you have my audio?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I'll go ahead and say hello.
Hello, Toby.
I'm in Kauai, Hawaii, so everybody knows, on vacation, and I saw
We're
this.
jealous. We're jealous.
Okay, well, I saw this on the agenda and I thought I better get in and try to give some input if I could. I don't know if of all of you having the knowledge, but I've been doing live events for over 50 years, from the papal visit at ASU stadiums to the World's Fairs to Entertainment with Andy Williams to Telluride Bluegrass to designing Mary D. Fisher Theater, the Barbara Antonson Park in Sedona, and having a home up in Oak Creek Canyon for 25 years before I ended up moving to Clarkdale, and we love it. But anyway, just a little of the background. So because of it, I have taken the time and been working with Joni on the entertainment and what goes on at the park and how this bandstand is used. Obviously, the bandstand originally was over near Main Street. And as it evolved, it looks to me, from what I see, like it moved to the middle of the park in order to make it so that they're, I guess they were performing to the road, Main Street originally, then it moved to the position, I guess, where it is now. And I have looked at what's going on here, and the fact that when we do the concerts in the park and what we do in the park, we end up with people that are actually on the sides and actually behind the bandstand. So the bands, and also it's very, very awkward for a load in to take and load equipment into the bandstand because of the fact of its location and the fact that you have to use carts to roll across the grass or get everything out to the location. So off of that, I don't know if you have it, but a while back I did a drawing. I don't know, can it maybe come up? I don't know if you have it. If not,
We don't have it, Toby. And
okay,
and
well,
yeah,
let me describe it then. What I'm suggesting is that the bandstand be moved back against First South. The reason to move it back against First South is several reasons. One is the load in is directly from the street. It comes directly to the bandstand. Number two, your bid for the ramp, excuse me, the $59,000 bid for the ADA ramp, 4 foot wide, is including a sidewalk all the way over from the bandstand where it existing, all the way over to the sidewalk at First South. So you're going to pour concrete all the way across from what I'm seeing here as far as the bid. If it was to be moved back and the ramp was set up to go to that sidewalk off of the back of the bandstand, you could load in on that 4 foot ramp right up onto the platform, and the bands could load in, they could load out, and it also becomes the ADA ramp. It's just a little better design, obviously. It also creates another roughly, I'm going to say 1/3 plus as far as your audience size, because by backing up, you get more people into the park that are in front of the bandstand, and thusly the performance is much better off that way. And the performance is that way. You also will not affect any of the sound as far as the people that live on First South, because you're not changing the direction of where the sound is going. I'm sorry that you don't have the drawing. I thought that we were getting it to you, but anyway, there is a drawing that I had done quite a while back, and I thought it had gotten sent over. Anyway, that's some input on it. The other thing that happens is I want to mention to you on the live event base. If you have something that is a much larger event, say you have somebody that's coming in that's a real primary entertainer.
Toby, 30 seconds.
Okay, that's on Clarkdale Parkway and First South on the corner. It's all gravel and there's nothing underneath it. I went over it with Terry, and you could very easily bring in a portable stage on that corner at a catty corner and pick up a larger stage at that location if you decide to do another different larger concert at that location. Anyway, it's input for thought, and I'm just taking and trying to give it to you. I'm trying to make it a win-win for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you
Really
very
quickly,
much.
We do have the drawing. It came in this afternoon when we were in work session. I just emailed it to Charity.
Okay,
She can
thank
pull it
you.
up for
We
me.
do have the drawing. It came in this afternoon. We were all busy in work session, so we have not seen it yet.
Okay, and the drawing was done a while back, but anyway, I've discussed what it is.
That's okay, Charity. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So much for your input. Let's go, I believe, to Bill Regner, and then I have a couple more people from the audience here. Bill?
Thank you, Mayor and council and staff. I really am not here to speak, was just here to listen. And as you know, I support the story that Clarkdale has, our special story, and that every decision that is made contributes to that story rather than detracting from it. And that's my only offering today. Thank you very much.
Excuse me.
Thank you.
Bill Regner, Clarkdale resident.
There's a couple of, I think, things that didn't come out clearly from the presentation, and we just wanted to clarify them really quickly, just so that everybody has the correct information.
Correct.
Go ahead now, though, so that people don't keep thinking the same thing,
Okay,
just to clarify a few.
we'll get
things.
back to all of you in a moment.
I just wanted to clarify a couple of things. First of all, with respect to the cedar versus pine, the Doug fir. So when we got the initial bid for the rehabilitation, we asked them to do what we call value engineering, which is to go back through it and see if there aren't some ways we can save some money. That's where we talked to the contractor and they said, look, run one course of the cedar and then do the rest in Doug fir. That's how we got the price, part of the price down. The bid for the rehab, for the replacement structure is cedar.
Right.
And not pine.
Thank
So I
you.
just wanted to clarify that. And then there's a couple of the comments that I can wait, or do you want me to do them all now?
No, wait.
Go ahead and do them now and so that they're,
Okay, I just
Out
wanted to
there.
address some of the concerns I heard about, making sure that we've exhausted all options. Staff has been working on this for 2 years now, and we have considered every single thing we can possibly consider with respect to the rehab versus reconstruction. One of the things that we looked at was just to save the roof structure was to rent a crane, strap it onto the roof structure, lift that structure up, set it down, rebuild the bottom of it and put the roof back on. It's simply not feasible. You can't do it. I appreciate people, that have different opinions about how this should be done, but we have hired professionals. We've hired a historic architect. We've hired engineers, structural engineers who do nothing but make these calculations all day long. And this is how they've advised us to proceed. With respect to the meeting in October of 2021, I want to be clear, there was a reference to a consultant that made this recommendation to hire the architect and engineer. This was not a town consultant. That was not anyone that the town had a contract with. It was a member of the public that was speaking. So that was not a recommendation from a consultant that we had employed. And I think that's about it. We're all struggling with what to do here. And I just want to make sure that you understand exactly what we're talking about. Thanks.
thank you for clarification. And let's go back to the public. Greg Miranda. State where you're from and you get 5 minutes max. And I am tiny. I have this little thing right here. Okay,
Mayor, Council, thank you. We moved to the Verde Valley about 5 years ago. Less than 2 years ago, we bought the Verde Valley Bicycle Company. We recently just bought a house over off of 13th and Sunset, in between First and Sunset on 13th. Remodeled it, and we've been working on that for the last year. I love this town. We love this town, and we're actually hoping to retire here. I was recently introduced to this project, and I'm not completely familiar with it, but I am a structural carpenter by trade, a draftsman, and I do a lot of work on restoring old things, and I would love to be a part of this. I wasn't quite sure what I was getting into here, but I learned a lot more just sitting and observing. And if there's something that I can do, I would love to be a part of it and offer my skill set.
thank you so much. I believe Amanda, is it Amanda Arnold? Yes,
Oh, I don't need.
welcome.
Thank you. I don't
And
need.
tell us where you're from.
I live here in Clarkdale. I've been
Okay.
in Verde Valley off and on since 02 or 3. Anyways, I bought my house a couple years ago, so I'll just cut to the chase. I'm listening to this about tearing it down and getting a new one. But I'm thinking, I used to work for the Park Service, and our #1 goal was to always save the buildings. Okay, you look at the Hopi House in the South Rim, that was restored. North Rim, there's cabins by the general store. Those were restored. Okay, so I'm not an expert, but I'm sitting here thinking, about all the projects that I've seen restored over the years being a park ranger. Also, being the incoming president of the Rotary, I'd like to get together and talk about some fundraising ideas so we can restore it. That's all.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to come up and make a comment, even though you haven't put your name in? I open it up to anybody who wishes to come forward and speak. Okay, we probably won't open it back up to public comment after this, so this is your chance. Okay. Hearing none, if it's okay, or seeing no one coming forward, it's okay to close public comment. Okay. Let's go back to our discussions. Would any of you like to make any comments? Yes.
I have a
Marnie.
couple of questions for Vice Manager. Okay. That's not your title, sorry. Assistant Town
Excuse
Manager.
us, we've been at this since about 2 o'clock this afternoon, so we're getting a little buggy here.
So I heard two things in the comments that I want to clarify. What is the useful life of a wooden structure outside in Arizona? What could we really reasonably expect?
15 to 20 years.
So the fact that this has been there since 1917 is actually kind of amazing.
Pretty amazing.
And what are our requirements as it relates to the ADA?
So we are required to provide ADA access because this is a public building. It's a public structure and we have to provide access for all members of the public.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
I have a
Questions?
question. Back to the ADA requirement, would that be required under either scenario?
Yes.
Because of the amount of stuff that has
Because
to
of the
be
amount of work.
replaced
Right.
versus.
Any other questions or comments for Ruth?
I don't have any questions for you. I thank you for your presentation. I'm gonna get emotional right now. Sorry.
Okay, you can do that.
I first drove through Clarkdale in 1992. I'm from New York City. I was in my little Honda CRX and I drove down Main Street from the Yavapai Apache Nation. And I saw the houses and I saw what I call the gazebo. It made me want to live here. I also clearly watched the presentation and I own a historic Clarkdale house, so it is old and I've done a ton of work over the 17 years that I've owned it. I also saw the presentation about what is underneath that gazebo. And I am mortified to think that we are putting people in vans with equipment and all of that with a structure that has no true structure to it and is twisting on itself. And I really appreciate the work that the town staff has done, and I appreciate the passion that everybody has for this, but I also think we really need to think about public safety while we really work to preserve the history of the town. And I think there is actually a way to do both of those things. So that's what I hope we can do.
Other comments? Anybody?
I have some thoughts that I just.
Thoughts to share?
I wrote down some notes today. I've been struggling this. I mean, we've all struggled with it for 2 years, right? And
Yes,
just
we
to
have.
set the record straight. I wonder if that statement that was made was out of context, but certainly I hold the gazebo very dear, what I call the gazebo also. But I think structures don't make memories. People and experiences are those that make the memories. And I think it's vitally important that we keep those people safe and allow for future experiences and memories. And if we just leave it as is or try and put another Band-Aid on it and some more duct tape, we're going to be back here again in a very short amount of time. As it was said out in the audience, how do you keep boards that are, rotten from water and termites and that it has to be replaced. And I've worked on that gazebo as far as putting up decorations, and I've seen how electrical circuits have can't handle today's modern decorations that we all like to see on the gazebo, on the lights, and the bands struggle with setting up their equipment. And you see the stairs taking a beating because there is no ramp and they have to drag all that heavy equipment up the stairs. And we've heard that wooden outdoor structures only have an average lifespan of 10 to 20 years, even with maintenance. I'm sure you've seen wooden decks that have deteriorated over time. It's a fact of life with wood in this harsh environment that we call the Arizona desert. When it was built decades ago, we didn't have architectural restrictions and guidelines and regulations that had to be followed. So you could do just nailing it in and using street signs and other things to make it look good. And it looks good from a distance. It's when you get up close to it that you see it's rotting. And I just am very concerned that we have children playing on it. We have people that work on it. And it's not safe. So we have to, that's our tough choice, is making those decisions to make our community safe. So again, I struggle with what the right solution is, but these are kind of the thoughts that I have that are helping to guide my direction here. Thank you.
Any other comments or statements?
I thank you. I have been with this project on at least 2 rehabs. And no, they weren't done right. We did go to the community for support. Every dollar raised was bloody. It was not pretty. I don't think that saving it as is feasible. I just don't. And I think if you saw the slide of the last time it was rehabilitated, that thing was down to bones at the time. So we saved the part of the structure that is now in danger. And it was put together with wood putty. It was. It's not fair to kick this can down the road again. It's not fair to put another council through this. This is harsh. This is harsh. But termites and rotting wood are reality. ADA is reality. Public safety is reality. Lawsuits, that's reality, and it's uncomfortable and it's painful, and I don't like to say it, but I'm pretty sure we just got to start all over with this thing. Sorry to take that.
Thank you. I can't imagine Clarksdale without the gazebo. I think of my grandfather and his sister playing on it when they were kids, and I wait for the day that my children can play on those steps and see all the holiday decorations. But the way that it is right now, it's not safe. And if we keep putting Band-Aids on it, it's not going to be there for my children. And, we've talked a lot about money. And I think the issue for me about the money is making sure that we are good stewards of your tax dollars and that we are spending money in the way that protects this structure for the future. And yes, could we restore it? But what is there left to restore? And how old are the things that we're restoring versus building something with new technology? And man, Verde Copper was all about new technology, right? Like, I would imagine that my great grandfather, if he were sitting here, would be like, why are you guys even arguing about this? Like, new technology is the bomb. You guys should definitely do the cool new thing so that it will last for 50 years instead of 20 years, 20 years, 20 years. So I want it to be there in the future. And I know this is a difficult decision for all of us, but I think we have to start over.
I've saved my comments to last, because I wanted to hear from all of you. And I appreciate all of your passion and all of your thoughts you have given, us tonight. And I want to very much give my appreciation to the Historic Preservation Commission for the work that they did to get us down this road, and to staff who have diligently pursued getting the best information to us and giving us all that we need tonight to make our decision. This is emotional for me too. Our Clarkdale gazebo is widely admired. We love it. It has great significance for all of us in Clarkdale and even throughout the Verde Valley. It's our icon. It stands tall in our community. It is a place we gather for joyous personal and community events, a wedding, a celebration, our July 4th, Halloween, all of those wonderful things, concerts in the park and more. But our gazebo is not standing tall at the moment. It's not because we do not take care of it. It's not because we don't take care of it. Most likely it's because we have loved it, used it so much that we have loved it so much to death almost. It's tired, but it wants to be iconic, tall and proud self again. I'm talking to it like it's a person, aren't I? Because for many of us it is. The current structure is failing. It's been deteriorating for many years. 18 years ago, and I was there, Jason. Understand, I was there. And I helped the community also raise money and put my personal money into it to repair the gazebo. Me and my family were a big part of that effort. At that time, almost all of the structures you saw was repaired or replaced. The posts that were partially okay, they had some termites, a little dry rot, were treated and reused. New railings were put on, we had new stairs, siding was installed. The structure was put on a cement slab because before that it was on dirt, and dirt was causing it to even deteriorate faster. The floor was redone, we put safety cables in around the gazebo, and most of the roof was used. And it was painted green. Not the red it had been for many years, or at least the years I had lived here. How many of us remember when it was red? The gazebo did look really wonderful after that effort, but the repair was not enough to help the gazebo for a long and proud life. Today, 18 years later, and this group knows that I almost died when we were back at this 18 years later. It still has failing parts and much more. It's time we quit patching up a structure that we love so much. It's time for it to be a new and proud structure in our town park. It's time for the gazebo to have the things it needs to meet the joyous demands we place on it. It needs ADA access for all. We need an easy and less damaging way to get equipment up and down the gazebo. And we need appropriate electrical and lighting. To help us bridge the past to the future, I think we can use a few parts out of the existing structure and put it on this new structure. Things like the copper ball on the top, or maybe some of the brackets that hold the posts. Things that are existing can be moved to the new structure. And I believe that those who will be building this new structure will do it with the same kind of care that was done when the original gazebo was built. I've seen the bids, I've read the bids. It is going to be a wonderful structure. So I'm going to say right here before the council is that I believe in option 2. I'm going to put it out there. Take down the existing structure and construct a new one that replicates and uses parts from the existing one where they can easily be incorporated in the new structure. To me, it's time for the gazebo to be our tall, proud icon in our town park for generations to come, so they can have the same memories and the same stories that all of us have had. I love the gazebo. I love this town that I moved to over 26 years ago. The saddest thing that was told to me 18 years ago, when I thought, even then, I will tell you that it should have been replaced. I was told I had no heart for this town, to my face. I want to tell you today, I have a heart as big as all of you in this town and my love for this town. We need to do right by this gazebo, by this park, by our residents, for the safety and the love that we all have for this town. Thank you. Any other comments or any other comments? And if not, I would entertain a motion of some sort.
I do want to clarify, you said option 2.
I believe that was oh, excuse me, I meant option 3.
Thank you for clarifying.
I was tired when I wrote this afternoon.
Madam Mayor?
Yes,
I move that we consider or choose the option 3, approve demolition and rehabilitation contract with Woodruff Construction in the amount of $155,873.86 and the ADA ramp in the amount of $59,029 for a total of $214,902.
okay, is there a second to that motion? I'll second. Okay. It's been moved by Council Member Babbitt Pearson, seconded by Council Member O'Neill to approve the demolition and rehabilitation contract with Woodruff Construction in the amount of $155,873.86 and the ADA ramp in the amount of $59,028 for a total of $214,902. And do we need to give authority to the town manager? Can we add that to move forward with the agreements as presented and change orders as needed? Okay, is that okay with both of you?
Yeah.
Okay, any comments on the motion?
Just one comment.
Sure.
Can we reserve final design of the ADA to look at the other options and just go with the main portion of the contract
Yeah.
for right now?
We have it as like a twofold right now, but I think we can look at the 3 options that have been proposed.
Okay, I appreciate that.
I think we don't need to remove it because we'll see the design back for the ADA ramp. There has been no decision made on how that ADA ramp would look. Okay, so we will see that back, but we're approving it. The question is the approval of the whole amount, including that with the design of the ADA ramp to come back to us for
Final review.
review. Okay? Just to clarify that, is that acceptable to everybody?
Yes, ma'am. And it does say in the quote that they will be utilizing whatever materials they can from the existing gazebo. So I just want to make sure that it was in the quote to do that.
Right, I know.
Yeah.
that. Okay. If there's no further clarification of the motion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Thank you all very much, and thank you for all coming tonight and expressing your opinions and thoughts with us. We appreciate it very much. Let's move on to item 7, future agenda items. Are there any future agenda items? I think we have. I think Charity gave us our sort of chart of what's coming up. Are there any things to add to future agenda items?
You have order.
Okay, hearing none, just to remind everybody, I will be out of town for our next council meeting, but I will Zoom in. And I will turn that over to Vice Mayor Hunstetter to lead for that one. So hearing nothing else, I would just say thank you, and we are adjourned for the evening at 7:35 p.m.